Until you make peace with your past, then you're not empowered to live your now and to create your future. I never think about what writing Saga Boy cost me because I'm so overawed by what I gained from writing Saga Boy. I said to myself, if I never sell one copy, that was worth it. If no one ever reads it but me, that was worth it.
No matter where you come from or what challenges you face, remember that you have the power to transform your life. We're bringing you the most inspiring stories and voices from authors who are indeed powerful forces for the culture in their work. These interviews will keep you believing in yourself, inspire you to keep pushing forward, and most importantly, never ever stop dreaming. It's your boy Kolby, and this is the Kolby Kulture Show. Family, welcome back to the Kolby Kulture Show, where Black stories breathe and culture lives. I'm your host, Derrick Jakolby Washington, but you know me as Kolby, and today we are going somewhere deep. Not shallow, not surface, but we're talking about migration, memory, identity, ancestry, and art as survival. My guest today is not just an author. He's not just a musician. He's not just a speaker. He is a story carrier. Born in Trinidad, built in movement, a creative whose life crosses oceans and genres. He is the author of the memoir Saga Boy and the novel Black Cherokee. And as a musician, he creates under the name John Orpheus, blending soul, Afro-Caribbean rhythm, and remembrance. Family, welcome the brilliant Antonio Michael Downing. Antonio, welcome to the Kolby Kulture Show, brother.
Wow. You just blessed me, man. Good Lord. Yo, what's up, Kobe? It's a blessing to be here, man. I'm excited.
Well, we're super excited to have you. So let's begin where all stories do, at the root. Before the books, before the music, before the platforms, you were a child in Trinidad. What did that home feel like before the world changed?
Yeah, well, I would say the closest thing in America to relate to it would be down south. Like
Hmm.
when I'm in Georgia, when I'm in Florida, when I'm in the Panhandle, that's where I get those real Trinidad roots. Picture, if you will, like a very rural area, unlimited rainfall, unlimited sunshine. The trees grow big, the insects grow huge, the things that eat the insects grow big,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
things that eat those, you just don't want to ever see them. Like there's real monsters in the bush. Like I grew up running through the bushes in a one road village with my grandmother. And it was me, my grandmother, and my older brother. We didn't really think it was weird at the time, but we didn't have our mom and dads around. So our grandma was like the world. She was everything. And she gave me like two really powerful gifts. She was always singing, mostly hymns. Well, always hymns.
Hmm.
And like she wake up singing, pass the day singing, happy she's singing, sad she's singing, going to bed she's singing. So I just picked that up. And then the other thing she gave me was a passion for words. She used to read her Bible every day, like Psalms and Proverbs, the poetic parts of the Bible. She
Yeah.
would read it every day, but she was older, so her eyes were bad. So she would get me to go get the Bible. Boy, go get the Bible. And I'd come out, could barely carry it. And
Hmm.
then she'd get me to read out the words, spell them out, and she'd tell me what they meant, get me to pronounce them, use it in a sentence. So I learned to read at like 4 years old so that I could be her eyes. And she gave me a lot of gifts, but sing songs and reading and stories, songs and stories are the two that kind of from the beginning had the biggest impact on me. And really, as your intro said, I'm still doing those things. So yeah.
Wow, that's what's up, brother. I definitely can relate to that type of grandmother. Being from the South myself, having a grandmother that was an evangelist, very religious upbringing,
Hmm.
always humming hymns, as you mentioned. So yeah, I definitely can relate to what you just shared there, brother. And you
Hmm.
didn't just move once. Your life has been marked by transition and relocation from
Right.
island to continent, from familiar to foreign. How early did you realize that you were becoming someone who lived kind of between worlds?
Well, as long as she was alive, that old lady, big up Miss Exley was what everyone called her. As long as she was alive, she was my world. But of course, she was an older lady. So the day come when she had a couple strokes and she passed away, and without even like I couldn't even had time to think, and suddenly in the middle of winter I was in northern Ontario in Canada. So to give you like an American parallel, if you can think of Minnesota, like Duluth, Minnesota, we were up a couple hours north of there. So it was like, and the funny thing is, Colby, it was like people always say, "Man, why didn't you go to Toronto where all the other Caribbean people were? That would have been better." They're shocked that I was there. But the odd thing was, as I just mentioned, I grew up in this really rural, bushy area with like monsters in the bush. And now it was the same thing, but just a different bush. They had bears at the dump when we went to drop our garbage. It had wolf packs running through the trees. It had like muskie swimming in the lake. The lake froze. We had a moment where the lake froze, and my Aunt Joan used to come and tell us in Canada, the lake freezes and we walk on ice. And we're like, Aunt Joan, ice outside the fridge melts. What are you talking about? We're not stupid. But the joke was on us because when we got there, in fact, my brother walked on the ice on the lake and fell through that first
Wow.
winter. He almost died. He almost
Jeez.
died. And yeah, so it was really shocking. And then once I got to Canada, if you think about it, like if someone were to ask you, who are you? Most of us would be like, well, I grew up here. I hang with these people, listen to this music. They call me this. My parents did that. Well, every single one of those things that would define me, and when my grandma died and I came to Canada, all of that was gone. And so, yeah, it was like that was my, if I were a superhero, that would be my creation event. Would be would be like, the Hulk gets blasted with gamma rays. Well,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
was my event that made me. And it made me because I realized that I was still here.
Mhm.
So then I realized all the things that we were using that I'd been taught define who I am. I suddenly realized that they actually don't. Because if they did, then I wouldn't still be here when they were gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Love that.
so, and really my life since then has been trying to explain that paradox, you know? And so a lot of my writing focuses on like, how do we actually do identity, and what is home, and what makes us really feel at home? And, and how do we really define that in a way that can't be taken from us?
Mhm.
So yeah, I went to 6 high schools, my brother, 6 of them.
Jeez, brother.
So I moved a lot.
Yeah. So when you reflect now, did migration make you feel kind of fragmented, or did it give you the gift of a wider world?
I mean, I feel both. I feel both. So, like, for example, a lot of people might be like, if you grow up in a town and maybe you left, but you came back to that town, you could go see the place you went to school. You've got deep roots in that place because you've been there for a
Yeah.
long time. I didn't have that. I don't have that. So, even when I go back to Trinidad, it's like, man, it's been so long. I was there in May. I was like, it's been so long. I don't feel like I'm from there anymore, but I don't feel like I'm from here anymore either. So I exist in this kind of what they call it, a liminal space, a space that is quasimodo. But because I'm not here nor there, I'm everywhere because I have equal access to all places that can be my home, and all things can be claimed. And really what I discovered was that home is your heart. That's where you really live. And so once you build that and you care for that and you uplift that and you nourish that, then anywhere can be home
Yeah.
and you're gonna be good, you know? And we all discover that eventually. I just was forced to discover it because of my circumstance.
Yeah, yeah, we're definitely going to get into that a little bit more, a little later in our conversation. But I want to talk a bit about your memoir, Saga Boy. It doesn't feel like
Hmm.
someone telling a story. It kind of feels like someone unburdening a soul. So I want to ask you plainly, what was the emotional cost of writing that book?
I don't that's an interesting question because the genesis of Saga Boy came where I was kind of midlife, and I like to call it my jacket period because I was living this double life where I was working on Bay Street, which is like Canada's Wall Street. So I had a high powered Wall Street sales job. And at night, I was playing music. So I'd come home, take off the blue conservative blazer, put on some shiny jacket with some sequins or something crazy on it, and go to my other job. And I hit a point where my life started to feel like I was trying on jackets, but none of them fit. So the only way I know how to deal with situations like that, Kobe, is to make something, like create something. And to that point, it had been mostly music. But then I finally was kind of like, you know what? I think this requires the idea that stoked me to start writing was this. Until you make peace with your past, then you're not empowered to live your now and to create your future.
Wow. Until you wait, say that again. Until you make peace with your past.
Until you make until you make peace with your past,
Yeah.
you're not going to be empowered to live your now and build your future.
So powerful. So powerful, brother.
And when I hit that, then I was like, okay, I need to write. I need to write, and so I was writing as an act of survival. I didn't even
Mm,
have a book deal. I didn't have any of that. I was just like I didn't even have those ambitions. I was just writing it as an act of survival. And so when you say what did it cost me? Well, it's really difficult because when you are writing to write an honest memoir, well, to write a good memoir, you have to be honest,
mhm.
right? You can lie to yourself, but nobody wants to read 300 pages if you lying to them.
Exactly.
And that honesty forced me to grapple with first, I was like, well, who are you? How did you get here? That's what I was trying to understand, make peace with my past. But to make peace with my past, I had to go, well, who were my parents? Right? Like, if I didn't understand them, how can I understand me? And then I had to understand them, I had to be like, well, who were their parents? And then when I got to that level, it was like, well, to understand them, I suddenly asked myself, well, what are these West African people doing in the middle on an island off of South America anyway? And when you pull on that thread, well, the whole fabric of my life kind of unraveled, and underneath it, I found my real,
Mm.
which was like a bigger, deeper, more rooted, grounded thing. And so I never think about what writing Saga Boy cost me because I'm so overawed by what I gained from writing Saga Boy. And I tell you, real talk, it was like when I finished it and they were like, okay, you're done. Thank you, sir. I said to myself, if I never sell one copy, that was worth it.
Mm.
If no one ever reads it but me, that was worth it. It was like an unburdening, like you say, an unburdening of my soul. Sometimes we're carrying weights that we don't know we're carrying till we put them down.
Yeah. That's so good.
And so for me, Saga Boy was my putting down of
Mhm.
all the invisible things I was carrying. And so I never think about the cost. I guess it cost me those bags I was carrying
Yeah.
because I gave them away. I paid them. I paid them in but I'm not gonna play with you. Like I called my agent called me one day. He said, "How's the writing going?" I'm like, "Well, every 20 minutes I write, I need 40 to recover."
Yeah.
Because emotionally it was that serious. And but I was lucky. I was at my condo in Toronto, 25th floor, great view, and I wrote on the island and I'm doing my thing. And I was trying to procrastinate. So I was reading the New York Times book review and I saw a review of Casey Lehman's Heavy. And when I read that book, he was so vulnerable in it that I stopped. When I read the review, I stopped. I said, I need to go buy this book and see what this brother's saying before I write one more word. And when I went and I read it, I was like, it gave me inspiration to not run away from the hard things and actually confront what was difficult and put it on the page. And I'm so thankful for him. And then of course I live to I think authors rarely get this, but he directly influenced the writing of Saga Boy. And then he actually read it and endorsed it before it was published as well. So it was like a full circle, and if you don't know Brother Casey Lehman's writing, I mean, he's down there in Mississippi, but that man is a gem. That man is a prophet of our times. Yeah. So I had help. It wasn't just me, but when you're writing, a lot of times it feels like it's just you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about that honesty. So you write identity with honesty, manhood with tenderness, blackness without performance. Did writing that book change you or did it simply reveal who you already were?
Well, again, I would say both because I believe that maturity isn't becoming somebody new, but accepting the person you always were. So for me, it changed me, but it changed me not in terms of who I was, but in terms of my acceptance of that person. It definitely changed that. Like I already knew what I was, but I always had a reason to feel not good enough. As Canadian Sarah McLachlan song, she has a song goes, "There's always some reason to feel not good enough." And I think when you're carrying baggage that you can't see, you don't know why you're running half speed. You don't know why it's hard to get out of bed some days, some weeks, some months, some years.
Yeah,
You don't know why your relationships keep breaking down because you can't see it. But once you put them down, suddenly it's like, oh, it's not like you get new legs. You just don't have the ankle weights on them,
yeah, yeah.
right? So it's change, but it's change in terms of not in terms of being different, but in terms of seeing different.
So there is a quiet masculinity in your work. It's not hardened, it's very honest. So how do you define manhood now after writing your truth into the world?
Yeah, I think manhood is having the courage to honor who you are, who
Mm,
you know yourself to be. Because I think really every day we are bombarded with opportunities to betray ourselves.
mm,
I don't think the problem is that we don't know who we are. I think we know who we are. We just often we do not like or trust or value that person. And so for me, manhood is first of all loving, trusting, honoring, valuing that person, and then having the courage to live that out in the choices you make in your life, which is easier said than done, but your relationship with yourself determines your relationship with everything. So
yeah,
if
yeah,
if you can't, you know what I mean? So if you can't keep faith with this, you ain't keeping faith with nothing out here.
exactly. Yeah,
And if you can't value this, then no relationship you have, if you can't value what you have here, then no relationship you have will you honor or take care of or cherish or really value as you should. And so, as one of my favorite philosophers, the Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, a friend of Martin Luther King Jr., He says the way out is in. And so the answer to all the things out here is to go inside and sort this out first.
Yeah, yeah.
Or as my another great philosopher, Lauryn Hill once said, Miss Lauryn Hill, how you gonna win when you ain't right
When
within?
you ain't right with that, brother. Yes, yes. So you brought up the great Lauryn Hill. That's a perfect segue into this next question. Just let's talk about music because you also carry your story through sound. As John Orpheus, you don't just make music, you create atmosphere, emotion, memory. What does music give you that writing does not?
Yeah, that's a great question, brother Kobe. I think that music is wow. I mean, they say even at 4 months old, in the belly, a child can recognize its father's voice. Like, forget its mother's, right? It can, right? So, and of course, the first thing we ever hear is our mother's heartbeat while we're in the stomach. So, of all our senses, the most kinetic and universal is sound, I believe, because we have it long before we can see, long before we can touch anything, long before we can smell anything, we have it. And so there's something that is immediate and potent about sound. Like I can write you, something that you need to read it. You need to first of all understand the language that I've written it in. You need to read it. You need to think about it, let it wash over you, reflect on it, read it again, and then boom, it hits you and it's powerful. And there's something that's lovely about that. Or we can just, or I can just go, where do you go when it all falls down?
Mm,
Where do you go when it all falls down? And it's like, you don't need any translation. You don't need any time. You don't need to even know what language I'm speaking. And it's going to hit you. And so I think uh, music is the extroverted side of me, and it gives me a catharsis, like an instant physical catharsis, where wherever I am, it's the alchemy that can transform my mood and my being. So whatever my vibe is, and I grew up watching my grandmother do this. If she was happy and she wanted to be sad, she could make that like that
mhm,
by singing
mhm,
a song.
mhm.
If she was sad and she wanted to be sadder because she felt she wanted to go there, she
Yeah.
could go there. Or she wanted to be happy, she could flip that mode. And so it is a powerful, powerful tool because, essentially we're all just made of air, of vibration, right?
Mhm.
Like we're all just vibrating. We're all atoms that are just doing this all the time. So yeah, that's what it gives me. But I got to tell you, writing also gives me things that music doesn't, and it's that power of reflection, which, you know, most of us, if you hit us up in the moment, we're gonna come up with the right answer, like, 30% of the time, maybe if we're lucky. The really smart people I found, if you give them time to reflect on it, they're going to come back and 100% of the time they're going to get it. And I feel like I've been that person in my life. Like as a young man, good Lord, like I was almost more drawn to the wrong answer than the right.
Mm-mm.
But if you gave me time though, I would come back. And one of the things you talked about manhood, one of the things that I learned and I'm thankful for is that coming back and owning it and making amends and saying, hey, you know what, like I was wrong, or you know what, like I got that wrong, you were actually right about that. And
Yeah.
that's so rare in our time, right? Because we live, Kobe, in the golden age of the know-it-all. So if you I do this test all the time. If you meet someone and you hang around them and that you've never heard them apologize, run.
Yeah.
That is a
Good advice.
litmus test. Yeah, that is a litmus test for how people will. So I believe in those two intelligences, like the quick, it's like in sports, we talk about fast twitch fiber and slow twitch fiber muscles. Like, I believe in both of those. And I feel music is the fast twitch because it hits you right away. I feel writing and literature is the slow twitch fiber that allows you to slow down time, pick through it, think about it, weigh it, measure it, and then see the right answer and come back with it in a kind of a calmness.
Yeah.
And, my life has been an interplay between those two.
So when you step on stage or into a recording booth, are you performing or are you remembering out loud?
Jeez, what a question. Are you performing or are you remembering out loud? Jay-Z got that line. He says, y'all, y'all record, I recall.
Yeah, yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, I would say ideally neither. Ideally, there's this line that Allen Ginsberg writes about Bob Dylan. He said that there was a time in this summer where he was singing and performing so in the moment that he became a column of air. He was so in touch with his breath that he became a column of air. That's what I feel my ideal of performing is. In fact, life. I think, breath is the bridge between the body and the mind. And I feel like when I'm conscious of my breath, I'm powerful. And that's where I want to be when I'm performing or I'm recording. I don't even want to think about out what's real, what's not real, authentic, not authentic. If you're thinking like that, then you're already out of the moment.
yeah, yeah.
When you're in the moment, when you're lost in your flow, you don't think about anything. In fact, you forget everything. It is a place of perfect forgetfulness. You forget your name, what are you doing, who you are you like, what is a human being? Am I one? Like, you don't even know anything. All you know is your breath in that moment. And I feel like that's my ideal. And
Love that. Love that. If your writing speaks to history, what does your music speak to?
wow, this is a great question. I mean, I would say that ideally in both, to build on what I was just saying, that idea of becoming a column of air. I feel like there's a collapse of past, present, future, temporality, time. It collapses, right? Because I was reading this philosopher Jacques Derrida. He has this idea called hauntology, and what the idea is that the past is always haunting us, right? Like, I literally can sit in this room as I do regularly. And I can hear my grandmother telling me stuff. Woman died when I was 11 years old, but I can hear her saying, talking to me, or if I ask her a question, she's going to answer me in her voice, and it's not going to be what I want to hear because a lot of times it isn't. So I know it's not coming from me. And I never realized how much people who are not present are always talking to me, or memories from the past, good ones, bad ones, neutral ones, are somehow always coming up. And when
Yeah,
I think about the future, my future selves, I don't know if you ever had that. Like, I used to do a thing where I would be like, well, Oprah, when I started writing this book, and it's me doing my future self,
yeah, yeah,
you know, or having conversations from the future. And so the idea simply is, well, if the past is gone, then it's nothing. And if the present, by the time you think of it, it's now gone. So it's also nothing. And the future hasn't happened yet. So it's also nothing. And so really what's left is this column of air, this breath that you're breathing. And
yeah,
so I would say that's what I would like to achieve in my writing and my music. That's how I would like it to feel for me. And if I'm really lucky, that's how I'd like it to feel for you.
yeah,
Right. And like this kind of like out of body, out of space, out of time. Nothing else matters, but you're here and you're breathing and you're in this moment.
Yeah, yeah. That's so good. So let's kind of shift a little bit. You've now added another gem to your body of work. Let's talk about Black Cherokee. This book sits a little differently. It carries ancestry, lineage, longing, and memory. What sparked this story?
Yeah. Yeah, shout out to Black Cherokee, man. I feel sometimes the only reason to do a work of art is because you admire it intensely. And this book came to me, a lot of times, writers will talk about their ideas when they get questions like this, and they'll say, well, I had this plan. Here's what I wanted to do. And then I went and I did it, and it's beautiful. But the truth is, ideas come to us like falling in love. Like you fall in love with someone, and then after someone says, well, why did you fall in love with them? And then you think of some reasons and you give it, and you better have a good answer.
Mm-mm.
But the truth is, when it actually happened, you weren't thinking of no reasons. It was just a moment,
Yeah,
a throb, a pulse that just grabbed you.
yeah.
So with this, I had spent a lot of time in South Carolina, North Carolina, in the South in general, Georgia, Louisiana, Tennessee, and just the landscape of the South kind of sunk into me. And the way how history is everywhere in the people, but the people don't always know the history,
Yes, sir. Say that. That's the truth.
right?
Yeah.
The history is in the people everywhere, but the people do not necessarily know the history. And that fascinated me. And I was meditating on it, meditating on it. There was about a 3, 4 year period where I worked for BlackBerry in my corporate life, and my territory was the South, was Dixie. So I was everywhere. And of course, you've been to Toronto, so it gets cold up here in the winter, so I had an excuse to always not be here
Hmm.
and be in the South.
Yeah.
So I traveled a lot, and my company encouraged it because I was doing business. So I got to spend like a good 3 years primarily in the South, and then one day these two characters just popped up. It was Grandma Blue, who was in the yard making a pot, and this little girl, Ophelia. And they popped up fully formed in and that dynamic. And I knew they were indigenous and black right away. And so I wish I could tell you that I thought everything out, but that kernel of truth, and I think a lot of times when you're writing or making a movie or whatever you're doing with your art, the hardest part is staying true to the original inspiration and not making it something it's not. And so I stayed true to that landscape, the bend in the river, the bend in the trees, the reservation, the Black indigeneity, Grandma Blue and Ophelia Blue.
Yeah.
They seduce me, really, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. So when you work at the intersection of Black history and Indigenous identity, it's not just storytelling; it's restoration. What were you trying to reclaim with this book?
Wow. It's so beautiful. An interesting thing is when I grew up in the Caribbean, the Caribbean is named after the Carib indigenous folks who inhabited it before everybody. And so we have indigenous people, but they're almost always mixed with black people.
Mm,
So when I say Afro-Indigenous to a North American ear, that sounds weird. You're like, what? Black Cherokee? I mean, that's the whole point of the title, because putting those two things together is instantly filled with friction.
mhm,
But for me growing up, African, Black, and Indigenous identity were always came together. I never
mhm,
saw it any other way. And when I came up here, when I moved up north, I was among the Anishinaabe people, like from right away. I was among them. They were their writing, their songs, going to powwows. Like I lived in a town, Sioux Lookout, that was 50-50 indigenous and settlers.
Wow.
And so for me, that was shocking because I was like, they told us they were all gone. The Cowboys and Indians movie said that these people aren't here no more. They here and they live and talk and breathe and they doing their thing. And so I think for the rest of my life, very often I've seen that intersection, like the struggle and the history of our peoples, because of course the people who sort of were the enemy of both our peoples were the same. So, you know, the saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But and when you dug into that relationship, it was so fascinating. Like the people in the Southeast, what they call the five so-called civilized tribes, which are the Choctaw, the Creek, the Chickasaw, the Seminole, and of course the Cherokee. And these are the people that the Indian Removal Act in 1832 by your then president, Andrew Jackson, the law was y'all can't exist in the Southeast anymore because we want that land.
Hmm.
And that of course led to the Trail of Tears. And so the history is when the white settlers came and brought sort of their chattel slavery of black Africans with the transatlantic slave trade, some indigenous folks who were wealthier, they also started owning slaves. And when the Trail of Tears happened, they took their slaves with them, of course, because they had to take their property, their wealth, and slaves represented wealth that could carry itself, that was mobile. And so you have these people who to this day are indigenous in culture and black racially. And to this day, only one of those tribes has acknowledged them as full citizens of the tribe. Only the yeah, only the Cherokee have, and the Cherokee did it in 2019. So not that long ago. So the history fascinated me, and it fascinated me because what I've learned is that black and indigenous people need each other.
Hmm.
The Seminole War was about that, right? Like the slaves from Georgia would run away to North Florida, and the Seminoles would give them land, give them positions in the tribe, make them bodyguards, make them cherished people, because they said, look, we live out here. We can run away because we always have family out here.
Yeah.
But you actually live in the house with the white man. You nurse him at your breast. You work with him in the field. You know him intimately in a way we don't. And and so there was this bargain where they were like, we have the land and y'all have the knowledge of who we fighting, who we're both fighting.
Yeah.
So let's bring that together. And so, you know, to this day, there are a lot of very African looking Seminoles. That history fascinated me, where I realized that there are these two people, we're inhabiting the same space, we have the same enemy, we have things the other needs, but very frequently we're at odds with each other or we totally ignore each other because, you know, we're both just trying to survive. And so that's the history I really, Cherokee sparked me to explore.
Yeah. So, what do you hope people confront while reading this story?
I hope that they feel the wind of that history that we're all swimming in but don't always see.
Mm,
I hope that you feel how powerful a call history exerts on our everyday lives. Because I think we live in times where things are ahistorical. People don't really read history, they don't think about it. And all the things that the problems they're wrestling with are rooted in history, but nobody's trying to understand that history. And so, what I hope people take away is just a sense of how we all live in lineages,
mhm,
lineages of our bodies, lineages of our families, our towns, our racial group, our the politics of our country. We
mhm.
all live in those, we're swimming in those waters and in those currents. And I really hope people leave with a stronger sense of what that means, especially Black and Indigenous people in America, especially.
Yeah, yeah. So you've lived across lands, cultures, languages, expectations. So I want to ask you something real. Do you believe home is a place, or do you believe home is a story that we carry kind of inside of ourselves?
Yeah, well, it's definitely not the first one because, like I said, I thought home was a place and then the place was gone. And when I went back to the place, I didn't feel at home anymore.
Hmm.
Right. And so I think that home is our hearts in the sense of the emotional world that we inhabit, that we build, that we protect, that we nourish, and that we carry with us. And yes, definitely stories are a part of that, but so is songs. And if you read Black Cherokee, a big part of Black Cherokee, so is food, right? Like you can, one of the things I learned, I judged a national short story contest in Canada a couple years back, and it was nonfiction because of Saga Boy. They asked me to do it. And one of the things I learned is whenever people want to remember home, they talk about food,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So, and it's music, and it's poetry, and it's ways of speaking, it's
Yeah,
ways of standing, it's the culture, Kobe.
yeah. It's the
That's our
culture.
home.
It's the
That's
culture.
our home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you write and sing about exile, return, memory, and identity. What does healing look like for someone who has had to build themselves across continents?
Yeah, I think as a man, there's a really powerful part of that that has to do with masculinity for me. And I think it's about, again, honoring our full selves, right? Because I think often, the great lie of masculinity is that you're not supposed to feel, you're not even supposed to have emotions, less much admit that something's wrong with your emotions. You're just not supposed to do that, which is ridiculous because obviously we feel we got all kinds of feels. So I think that healing for me involves honoring that, honoring who I am emotionally, intellectually. Like I think as Black men, often in oppressed cultures, we distrust the books and we distrust learning because that comes from them. But what I've learned is that Black people been writing books for like before them.
Yeah, yeah,
And so when I was a kid, people would tell me, well, hey, no one cares what you read in the book because that's not about us. That's not the culture. And so honoring myself intellectually and saying, well, no, actually, a lot of those ideas did come from us,
hmm,
first of all. And we were writing way back when Europeans were in caves.
hmm,
There was writing and scholarship in Africa. And so, I feel like honoring myself intellectually, physically, taking care of yourself. How you
hmm,
take care of yourself is a reflection of your relationship with yourself, which
yeah,
again is the beginning of your relationship with everything.
yeah,
And so honoring all those dimensions of myself in a cohesive way is important. And I think also finally the thing that brings together the intellectual, the spiritual, the physical is purpose.
mm,
Is purpose because knowing and we all don't have to do the same thing. We all don't have to be writers or hosts of dope podcasts. We don't have to do that. But whatever we do, choose it and make sure it's something that honors you, edifies you, and wakes you up in the morning inspired with fully charged batteries. And I think that's a huge part of healing for me because now that I've hit that place, I'm not so worried about am I okay? I'm actually going around telling other people, "Are you okay? What can I do to help you be okay?" And
Yeah.
when you hit that point, it's kind of like now you've healed enough that you can help others heal.
Yeah, yeah. So talk to the listener right now who feels disconnected from their roots, disconnected from home, disconnected from self. What do you want them to know?
Wow. Yeah, I think that is such disconnection is such a 21st century plague. I want them to know that connection is just one breath away. You know what I mean? Like, cause I think when you're disconnected, you can feel like, wow, how did I get here? This is impossible. But actually, one breath from now, you can you can call your friend or your brother that you haven't talked to for a while. One breath from now, you can have that record you love or that song you love on and be dancing to it,
Yeah,
singing along to it. One breath from now, you can pick up a book that you used to read or go down a street that you used to go down or even just sit silently and count the things that you're grateful for. One
mhm,
breath from now. And so there's always hope. And you have the power to transform and to shift the outcome right now with one breath, right? And I feel that's the great lesson that I learned. I'll tell you something that I don't think I've ever said it publicly ever, but probably in my adult life, so after the age of 19, there up until about maybe 5 years ago,
mhm.
every single year of my life, there was at least 3 weeks where I was so depressed I couldn't get out of bed.
Wow.
And so I understand that dark night of the soul, as they call it. I've been there. I've lived there. I've made it my home. I've got posters on the wall. Like, I know it well. And I'm here to tell you all you need to do to change it is just one action, just one breath, one breath. You were always one. I was always, no matter how bad that got, one breath away from getting up and shifting the energy. And I think the greatest sadness is we do not appreciate how powerful we can be
Yeah,
when when we have a sense of purpose. And so, yeah, if there's one thing I would want everybody to know is that you got this. You
yeah.
really do.
Got this. You got this.
Cause yeah, if I can do it, cause like I said, I grew up in a one road village into the jungle, my friend, where in a country that like we didn't even till I was born, we didn't even have parliaments. You couldn't vote. We didn't have none of those things like Americans, take for almost granted.
Yeah, yeah,
And now I publish books internationally. I'm on the radio nationally in Canada, millions of people listening. Like, if I can do that, like, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm not just talking the talk because I'm not someone who's been handed everything that's just talking the talk. What I'm saying is, look, we can do this. You got this.
yeah. Yeah. And I really think that we're living in a time where people need that encouragement. Like there's so much going on all across the world. I can just speak for here in the DC area. Just so much going on. And so I think
Mhm.
that what you just shared is really going to pull somebody out of that place of despair, of depression. So appreciate you.
Yeah, and it's almost out of fashion to hope, right? It's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you got hope?" That's so corny.
Yeah.
People saying you corny because you have hope, and I feel that pendulum swinging, and I see that in what you're doing here at Kolby Culture on the show, and I try to do that in my work, but I feel people are starting to realize, look, we drowning, so if somebody gonna throw us a life jacket, we having that.
Yeah. Yeah. For real. All right. Last question. What would it mean to you if someone reads your work years from now and says, this helped me understand who I am?
Hmm. Everything, right? Everything. The book is a meeting with the reader for all time. It's like you're both climbing a mountain and you get to the top and you meet each other there, and that can happen. I read books from 100 years, 200 years ago, 300 years ago. I have a degree in literature. You know, I can quote you Shakespeare and people who are writing 500, 600 years ago that have enriched my life today. People who have nothing in common with me, and that's the power of literature. And I think the biggest reason, there's lots of reasons I write, but the biggest one is that thing, because that means that I have a sense of eternity, a slice
Mm-hmm.
of eternity, a
Yeah.
sense of a bit of immortality. And it also means that they are now in my lineage,
Mm-hmm.
my intellectual lineage. They are now in it. So I've taken from those that have given to me, and now I've given back. And to me, that's my purpose. So that would mean everything. If even one person read my book 100 years from now and felt and that helped their lives, I'd be like, yo, well done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Antonio Michael Downing, thank you for your honesty, your offering, and your artistry. Tell our listeners how they can stay updated on all that's happening in your world.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm on, I mean, first of all, thank you for having me, Colby. I'm a fan of your show now that I was listening, as prep for being here, but then I went deep because I was enjoying it so much. And it truly is an honor. I have a website, Facebook, Twitter, X. Instagram is where I spend the most of my time, and I don't have a public Twitter, but I Facebook, but I do accept dope friend requests from dope people. So if you do use Facebook and you feel you're up to the mark, then send me a friend request and I will let you in. But Instagram is a great place. Yeah, we out here, and please, if you're listening to this and any of this has inspired you, check out Black Cherokee, check out Saga Boy, and let's meet at the top of that mountain.
Yes, sir. Family, go read Saga Boy, go pick up Black Cherokee, go listen to John Orpheus, support artists who tell the truth with courage. This has been the Kolby Culture Show. I'm Kolby, and until next time, keep your roots deep, your spirit wide, and your story sacred. Peace. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to follow the show wherever you listen to your podcast. Watch, like, and subscribe on YouTube. And please feel free to give us a 5-star rating. See you on the next one.